Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about reason in us. In the last video I drew the house and we talked about the difference between the critical and the constructive use of reason. Today we want to talk about reason in us. So let's look at the handout. I'm going back to the handout here. And this is the third way we're defining reason. Remember, we talked about reason in itself, the laws of thought, reason in its use, and the many ways we use reason and could misuse reason. And then lastly, reason in us. So let's look at the handout again. So let's define each of these areas. We'll call this reason is not fun. Reason in us is not fun. That's how I remembered it. How do we get not fun? It's natural, N. It's ontological, O, it's transcendental, T, and it's fundamental, F, or F-U-N, fundamental. Okay, reason is not fun. So let's talk about reason is natural first. All right, what does it mean to say that reason is natural? It means that reason is not cultural or conventional. It's the same in all persons at all times. It's not based on where you live in the world or when you live. It's not made up. It is an aspect of human nature. Aristotle says that humans are rational, political animals. So this is part of being a rational being, that we have these laws of thought that we use. We naturally form concepts, judgments, and arguments. We naturally construct a coherent world and life view and test it. I guess we could not test it. We can fail to test it. We use reason more or less consciously and consistently. But let's look at things that are conventional. For example, words are conventional. Oftentimes when I go over this example, we talk about the concept of mother. Mother is a word that is used to explain some reality, and sometimes students get heated over this reality that we try to define with the word mother. I'm not going to do that now, but I'll let you think about how would you define mother. The word mother is conventional, but the reality that the word stands for is not. The concepts that we have are universal. Water, there's a concept. There are many different languages in the world, and they all have different words for that reality. So think about this. Concepts are the same in all thinkers. We're going to go over this again, but that's what it means to say that concepts, reason is universal. Reason, the laws of thought, is the same in all persons at all times. This is what makes for cross-cultural communication possible. This is what makes the study of history possible. This is how we can communicate with people who don't speak our language. It's because we share reason, the laws of thought, and concepts. All right, so think about that. You might have some objections. The second point here is that reason is ontological. Now, there's a word you might want to look up. What does that mean? Ontological has to do with being. Ontos is a Greek word for being. So reason is ontological means that reason, the laws of thought, are also the laws of being. So reason applies to being as well as to thought. Aristotle thought this was true. He put the laws of thought in his metaphysics rather than in his logic, because he thought if there are laws of thought, they are applied to things that are realities, rocks, people, animals, everything that bees, it is what it is. Okay, so if something is, then it is what it is, and the laws of thought are the laws of being. All right, now here are some things that the laws of being also imply. There are no square circles. You can't have something that is both a square, a plane geometrical figure with 4 90-degree angles, and a circle, a plane geometrical figure where all points are equidistant from the center. It's impossible. The law of non-contradiction tells us that. All right, there are no square circles, and there are no uncaused events. Okay, an event is something that is by nature caused. There are no uncaused things that are caused, okay? So I would like you to think about these applications. You cannot get being from non-being, another application. We'll unpack that as we go along. All right, the second implication of reason in us is that reason is ontological. Hold on to that one. Don't ever lose that one. Third, reason is transcendental. Now that's a big word. That's one you might want to look up. Transcend means stands above. So it's higher than. And in this context, it has to do with authority. So reason is authoritative and self-attesting. It is the highest authority. Now, people might object to that, but think about it. All the human authorities that we know, parents, teachers, government officials, pastors, priests, rabbis, imams, they all use words, and words need to be tested for meaning. And remember, reason is the test for meaning. Scripture, what claims to be scripture, words that need to be interpreted, and reason is the tool that we use to interpret. So reason is the authority, and it cannot be questioned, but it makes questioning possible. Now think about this. When I was a student, I wanted to question reason. I went home and said, I'm going to come up with an argument against reason. But then I realized using arguments is an application of reason. It's the third act of the mind. It is after concepts and judgments. So I would have to use reason to argue against reason. And then I just got my mind into a pretzel. So you can try it, but you'll notice to question reason is to use reason. So reason is authoritative. It is the highest authority. And guess what? This is hopeful for us because we all have access to this authority. It is going to be a common source of authority for all humans in all times. And then lastly, reason is fundamental. This is really great. It is basic. Reason is basic to other aspects of human personality. Other aspects of human personality include our feelings and our will. So if you were going to go back to thinking presuppositionally, we would have reason at the bottom, more basic, then emotion, and then will. Now, our emotions have a cause, and it's our thoughts in reason. And will is how we act. Our actions have a cause. Usually they're caused by our thoughts and our feelings, driving us to do something. So reason is basic to our feelings and our actions. And we could look at what we believe by looking at our actions. Now this part sounds a little bit, I don't know, philosophy teacher-ish, right? This is what they put in there to make it a little bit, mysterious. The use of reason is the source of our greatest good, and its denial is the source of our deepest misery. Now think about this. If you use reason, what will you use it to find? Remember the house. You will get knowledge, you will know what is real, and you will know what is good for human beings. I mean, that seems to be the source of our greatest good. But if we don't use reason, guess what we won't get? We won't have meaning. We won't know what is real. We won't know what is good for humans. So all of our misery stems from not knowing what is good. So hopefully as we go along, we could use reason to answer that question. What is good for humans? What is the good? What is the source of human flourishing? All right, so at the end of this handout, you should be able to answer these questions. What is reason in itself? What is reason in its use? And what is reason in us? All of these come to be the definition of reason. So if someone says, how would you define reason? You can say, I would define reason in itself as the laws of thought. You could define reason in its use, and you can define reason in us. From here, we're going to talk about reason and public discourse. How can we have common ground in a highly contentious public setting? How can we talk about things that are difficult, like religion and politics? So the next handout we'll talk about is reason and public discourse.